Hello, guys. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining on this session three of our Archicad Now webinar series on the topic template creation for Archicad projects. So, in this webinar series, in the last two sessions, we saw how to, how to use the guide that we give for the Archicad templates for all three disciplines. And in the last session, we saw how to do project preferences and then how to set up the project structure and then how to set up the translators for our project template. And in this session, or the third session, we are going to see element attributes along with renovation filters. Okay, so without any delay, let's go ahead. So I'll straight away go to Archicad and then I'll show you the element attributes first. Okay, so inside Archicad, you can see here we have options on the menu bar, and then under the options we have element attributes, and we have all these element attributes like layers, lines, pens and colors, fills, surfaces, building materials, composites, profile managers, zone categories, operation profiles, MEP systems, and so on. Okay, so today we are going to see all these element attributes, how to set them up if in case you want to create any custom lines, pens, fill, surfaces, and so on. I'll show you how to do, and then we will see how to manage all these attributes, okay, inside your project. Okay, so the first one is the layers. So when you click layers, the layers dialog box will open, and you will see the layer combinations on the left and then the layers of each layer combination inside the right. So when you select them in the left inside the layer combination, the corresponding layers will be seen, and then their statuses, whether they are hidden or visible. Okay, so if you want to create any new layers, you can use this new option inside the layers section and then create your own layers with your name. So you can enter any name that is not available on this list and then click OK. So the layer will be added, and then you can use the options here to make them visible or lock them, or you can just make it hidden. Okay, so if in case you want to create any new layer combination, so you have the new option here, so you can click this and then you can give a new layer combination name and then click OK. So I'm not clicking any new layer combination now. So you can see there are a few layer combinations that are available on our templates. So based on the layer combinations, you can make the elements visible and then hidden using the option here. Okay, so you can also make it locked if you want. Okay, so I'm not going to go into further details about the layers. So let's go ahead with the next attribute, the lines. Okay, so here when I click lines, you can see there are lines that are available in this template. So you can create your own lines if you want. So let me try to create one. Okay, let me just delete this one. Okay, so if you want to create any line, custom line, right? So you can use the line tool here. So you shouldn't be using the polyline tool. Make sure you're using the line tool. And then using the line tool, you should create the pattern of it. So if you see here, I have created one. So I have a line, and then after that, I have boundary, short form of boundary. So you can use this line as a boundary for your project. Okay. So before you create your line, so you need to create this pattern, and then you can just select everything and then right click and copy, or you can use Control C or Command C in your machines. Okay, so once you have copied, you can go to options, element attributes, and then lines. Okay, so now you need to create a new line. So for that, we just click new. So just click new, and then you can duplicate any of the previous lines or use the symbol here. So we are going to use the symbol here. Okay, so you can click symbol and then enter the name here. So let me just choose boundary as the name and then click OK. So once you click OK, so currently you have the empty line here. So here you can choose paste. Okay, so once you paste, the line that you have created, the pattern that you have created will be visible inside this edit select type. Okay, here you can see in the preview. Okay, now you can choose the dash size. So the dash size is the size of the pattern that we have created, and then gap is the size of the gap for the further following of this line. Okay, so let me just make this 2 mm, and then here you can choose scale with plan or scale independent. So I can make it scale with plan so that it is scaled according to the plan view. Okay, so now we have created this. If you want to reduce the dash size, you can do so, but let me just have it 40 for now. Okay, and then I'm clicking, so you can see here on the preview it is already created. Okay, let me click OK here, and then I can now create my line. Okay, so for creating the line, you can either use the polyline tool or the line tool. So if I use the polyline tool, I can select the boundary that we just created here. Okay, so under the geometry method, I choose the polygon. So let me just create a bigger line. So you can see the line that we have just created has been converted into based on the scale, and then we are able to use this line in our project. Okay, so this is how you can create lines inside, custom lines inside Archicad. Okay, so now let us see how to create custom fills. Okay, so I'm going to fills. We'll come back to pens a little later. So I'm going to create new fills. Okay, so for that, go to fills, and here we have the current fills that are available in the project. So you can create our own fill if you want. So let's just click new here to create a new one. I recommend not to edit the available one on the default template. So it is always better to duplicate one and then you can edit it so that it can suit your needs, so that we always will have the default one so that we can use it anytime. Okay, so just click new. While you're selecting the component to duplicate, the fill type to duplicate, you can choose the one that is closest to your uh, uh, the fill that you're going to create. Okay, so if you want to create any brick, you can choose the brick option here and then you can duplicate that. Maybe I can just choose anything from here, or I can just go with this common brick and then click new. Once I click new, I should use the symbol fill here to create my symbol. Okay, let me just give a name, maybe brick fill, and then click OK. Alright, so let me just first copy the fill that I've just created. So I'm just using this lines to create my fill. Okay, so let's just select that and click copy. And let me go here and then go back to fills. And then just click my new name brick fill again. Okay, so now I can again use the option copy, the paste. So I can just click paste here. So once you click paste, you can see the pattern in the preview. So you can just zoom out and see the pattern. Okay, so here in order to customize this fill, we have multiple options here. So you have scale options to scale them in X and Y axis. Okay, so currently I'm just going to leave it one. I'm not going to scale them. And if you want to rotate it, you can rotate also. And then we have strokes. So in order to create a stroke pattern, so we have X1, Y1, X1, X2, and Y1, Y2. Okay, so here this 250 is the length that we have just drawn for the one brick, and then 75 is the height of the brick. Okay, so if you want to change it, you can change it here. So here we have the default ones, so you can change it here if you want. Okay, so I can give a gap by giving more value here. So maybe I can just give a 10 mm gap, so I make it 260. Okay, so when I make it 260, the gap between the first one and then the second one is increased by 10 mm. Okay, similarly, if I want to make the similar pattern in the height also to show the uh, thickness, I can make it 85. Okay, so when I make it 85, you can see the gap between the patterns. Okay, now I can make it staggered. So to make it staggered in x-axis, I don't want to make it staggered in y-axis. I'm just going to make it staggered in x-axis. So I can give a value of half of the height or the half of the width. Okay, so I'm giving half of the width, which is like around 125. Okay, so you can see a staggered pattern has been created here. Again, you can use to scale with plan or scale independent. You can choose here. Okay, so once you are done, make sure you are choosing the right options here, whether you're using it with drafting fill, cover fill, or cut fill. Okay, so I'm selecting all three of them. And then here, this one is a screen only pattern. This one is mainly used only for preview purposes. Okay, so if you want to show the preview, you can just use this. Okay, so let me just select these two. Okay, I'm clicking OK here. All right, so now the fill has been created. Now we can use it here in the fill tool or even with the slabs or whatever tool that is supporting the fills. Okay, so let me just use the fill tool here, and then you can choose the fill type. So we have the brick fill that we just created, and then here the fill category, you can choose the drafting fill or cut fill or whatever. Okay, so let me just use the drafting fill, and then if I draw the fill, so you can see the pattern here. Okay, so when you're drawing the fill, if you go inside the settings before you draw the fill, and if you're using the construction method linked to fill origin, you will be having a access here using which you can define the origin and its orientation. Okay, so here I can choose this and I can rotate it. You can see the orientation of the fill gets changed inside my fill. Okay, so before you draw, you need to make sure you choose this link to fill origin option before you draw the fill. Okay, all right, so now we have seen the fill. Let us see how to create surfaces. Okay, so now I'm going to create a surface. So here is the surface dialog. As I told earlier, please don't edit any of the default materials that are available here or the surfaces that are available here. So we can choose the one that is very closest to the one that you are going to create. Say for example, I'm going to create a brick black. Okay, so here we have brick red. So we can use this brick red and then duplicate it to create the brick black. So one option, useful thing that when you duplicate the closest element is all the transparency settings and reflection settings here all will be set automatically. You need not change anything much if in case you are going to use the same settings for this new material that you are going to create. Okay, so I'm using this brick red and then click new here. So once you click new, so you'll be asked whether you want to duplicate or you want to create a new one. So I'm just using the duplicate option, and then I can just give a new name, which is brick black. Okay, now I can click OK, and then the surface color you want to change, you can change. For the red ones, currently it's in red color. Let me change it to gray one. Okay, so I've changed it. And again, for the cover fill, we can try to use the fill that we just created. Okay, so I created this brick fill. You can use it. Okay, and then again under the texture, you can choose the browse option here to add the image. So you can download the texture image from internet, and then you can use those. Okay, so I have downloaded already one, and then I'm going to use that here inside my brick. Okay, so just click open. It is added to the embedded library. Click OK. And then choose it and then click OK. So you can see it is brought inside here. Okay, so if you want to use the original proportion of the image, you can choose to use that, and then you can define the texture size, maybe like 2 meter, and then based on the original proportion, it will automatically give the height of the texture. Okay, so if you want to have any rotation, you can add the rotation, and under the distribution, you can choose the distribution pattern here. And under the alpha channel effects, I'm not going to change anything because I'm going to use the same settings as of the one that I'm duplicating from. Okay, so if in case you want to change anything, you can make it transparent, you can make it diffused, specular, you can use those options. Okay, currently I'm just using the one that I just duplicated from, and then let me click OK. So now if I create any model, right, I can use this surface fill. Okay, so maybe let me go to 3D, and then I have a model here. I can try to use the surface here. Okay, on the external surface, I can use the brick black that I just created. Okay, you can see the brick black that I just created. Okay, so all right, so let's just create building material. So for that, go to option, element attributes, and building materials. Okay, so I will go ahead and create the building material. Again, we have the brick here. So you can use this brick, select that, and then click new to duplicate the building material. Okay, so for this brick, we have a lot of settings. So if you go under the classification, ID, and categories, so you can see here some of the physical properties that we have, like thermal conductivity, density, heat capacity, all that I'm going to just use from the brick, which is the default one. Okay, so I'm just going to click new here and then give a name, brick black. Okay, so just click OK here, duplicate from the brick. All right, so here we need to set the surface, sorry, the cut fill and the surface. So for the surface, we can choose the one that we just created. So here is the brick black. I can choose that. Okay, and for the surface cut fill, if at all you want to change anything, you can change. Currently I'm just going to leave it common black, and if in case I want to change the color from here, I can change. Maybe I'll just use black. Okay, and again for fill orientation, you can make it come from the project origin, or you can make it start from the element origin. Okay, so here I chose, and then for the intersection priority, I'm just going to have it the same as that of brick. If in case you want to change the priority based connection intersection, you can change it here. Okay, so based on the priority, the element connections will be cleared automatically. Okay, so let me just click OK here. So now I can start using these materials inside my components that I just create. So I can just use the wall tool here, and then if I make the structure simple one, I can choose the material from here, the brick black that we just created. Okay, so using that, I can just create, and then you can see the fill that we chose when we created the brick material is being used in the cut fill. And then if I see this in 3D, you can see the building material that has been just created for the wall that we have drawn now. Okay, so let me just go back to floor plan. Now let us see how to create composites based on the building materials that we just created. Okay, for that we can use the composite option here, and then when we go here, as I told earlier, don't edit any of the composites that are available by default. It's better to duplicate and then use yours. Okay, so let me just duplicate this generic wall shell. Okay, so click new. You have options to duplicate, and then you can just give a name here. Okay, so I just give a name here and then click OK. So when you click OK, so here we have the skins and then the skin separators. So each skin, you can choose the material. So maybe you can choose the one that we just created, the brick black, and then here for the structural thing, we can just use anything that we have here. So maybe generic structural or concrete block structural, whatever. Okay. So for each skin, you can choose the pen here. And for each skin separators, you can choose the line type. And then you can choose the pen also for those. Okay. And then for each of the building material for the skin, you can choose whether it is a core or finish or other. So if it is a core, it will be the structural, it will have structural properties. So if it is a finish, it won't have structural properties. So when you switch off the finishes in the views, it will be hidden. Okay. So here under the use with, you can assign it to any of the element type here, like wall, slab, shell, or roof. Okay. So if you want to insert or remove skin, you can use the option here to insert skins. And then you can defining the thickness of each skin here. The overall thickness will be shown here below based on the thickness that we give for each here. Okay, so let me just show by adding one skin. So you can see the insert skin option has added one more. You can choose here from the material, but if you don't want, you can just use remove skin. Okay, so let me just click OK. So now I can use this composite for the wall that we have just created. So go to the structure and change it to composite, and then I can choose the new one that we just created. Okay, so if I go to 3D back again, you can see inside there are concrete blocks, and then outside is the brick black that we just created. Okay, so this is how we can create composites inside. Okay, so there is a relationship between the element attributes that we just saw, like the fills, surfaces, building element materials, and composites. I will just try to show that. Okay, so if in case you want to create any surface, you need to have fills for that. So as I told earlier, so when you use the option vectorial hatching, right? So you need to use any of the fills that is default available, or you can create your own fills before you create your surface. Okay, so for creating any building material, you need to have fill and also the surface. So the surface, you can apply it inside the building material, and then for the fill, you can use the cut fill option that is available on the building material with any of the fills that are available, or you can create your own fills. Okay, so for creating any composites, you should have the building materials. So you need to first create your building materials before you create your composite. So this is the basic relationship between the element attributes inside Archicad. So for creating any building material, you need to have fill and surface. So for creating any surface, you need to have at least one fill. Okay, so for composite, you need to have all of these. Okay, so let me go back to Archicad. Let me now go to the pens and color. So when you click the pen and color option here, so you'll have the pen sets that are available inside your model or inside your template file. Okay, so when I choose this, the default one, the architectural one, you can see here, each row and column here are categorized according to the type here. So if I select this row, right, so all this row, if you check the description, is having the category general, and if I go one by one down, you can see it changes the description. So inside Archicad, so for drafting, general drafting, will be using this pen. Similarly, if I go in the columns, right, further into the columns, so you can see the 2D elements, and then you can see the openings, and then objects, and so on. Okay, so each row and column are defining a type, and then it is being separated by a hyphen in between. So this particular blue color column is showing for the annotations, and for each annotation type, you have the annotation markers, you have the annotation arrowheads, annotation frames, and so on. Okay, so the next is the pen. For each pen, you will have the pen weight and then the color. So if you want to define anything new, you can use these empty spaces here, and then you can create your own pen weight, and then that can be included within your template. Okay, so whenever you select any of the pen here, you will see the pen weight here along with the description and then the color. Okay, so here is the number for that pen. Okay, so once you have customized them, and then you can just use your store as option to create a new pen set here. Okay, so let me just click cancel here. So that's it about the pens. So now let's see the profile manager. Okay, so when I click the profile manager, we have the profile manager dialog open. You can choose the profile that are already available here. So let me just choose one of them. And then if you click edit, you can just create your own profile here. I'm not going to go into details of creating profiles here. But you can use the profiles and then you can assign them to different element types here, like walls, slab beams, columns, railing, and then the objects. Okay, so here we have the modifiers to define the parameters for your profile so that it becomes parametric when you use it inside the you know when you use it inside the components menu model. Okay, so I'm not going to go into details of the profile manager. So let me just go back to element attributes and then the zone categories. Okay, so now we have zone categories. We can create our own zone categories, but there are some default ones, and then we have the ones that are customized inside our template. So you can duplicate from this and then set a color for each category and then choose the zone stamp. Again, these zone stamps are based on the library paths that are available here. You can choose one from them and then choose to use this zone stamps for this category. So whenever you're drawing a zone, you can choose the category before you draw so that it uses this color along with this zone stamp. Okay. So I'm not going to show you how to create zone stamps, but you can just use from the one available here, or you can create one and then choose from here. Upload it to your library and then you can choose from here. Okay. So just click OK. Now go to options, element attributes, and then we have operation profiles. I'm not going to go into detail of this because it is using the code designer that most of us are not using it in here in Singapore. So let's just go to the MEP systems. So here are some of the MEP systems available. So if you want to create any new, there are. Okay, so let me open. Okay, let me open the MEP template and then show you the systems. Looks like it is taking longer time because I'm sharing screen. Let me just use this options here and then explain for now. Okay, so under the MEP systems, you can create your own MEP system and then assign them with the element type here, like ductwork, pipework, or the cable tray. And then for each MEP system, you will be able to change the representation here for 2D and 3D for the surfaces. And then you can use fill option, centerline option, and pens here to define your own MEP system representation on 2D and 3D. Okay, so for each MEP system, you can define your own. Okay. So the last one that I want to show here in the element attributes is the attribute manager. So inside the attribute manager, you will have all the attributes that we just saw. So you can see the layers, pens, lines, fills, building materials, surfaces, composites, profiles, and so on. So you can use this attribute manager to manage the attributes inside your project. Okay, so if you see here, these inside the composites, here that we can see the tick option. It means that the project that you're currently opened is using this particular attribute. Okay, either in the model or inside the favorites. Okay, so you can see a lot of ticks here. So these lines are being used inside the project. either inside the model or inside the favorites. Okay. So here there are a few options in between inside the between the temporary and then the attribute types here. So if you want to purge the unused attributes, you can click purge so that the unused attributes will be removed from the project. Okay, but if in case you want to export any of the attributes from here, you can just use the append option. So if you use append option, it will just append here. So currently there is nothing, so it will just create with one here. Okay, but if I choose by index, it will replace the one that is having the same index. So if I choose one here and then click by index, you can see it gets replacing the one that I just appended. So whenever you are exporting or importing, you should be clear before you click the by index or by appending or by name. So similarly, if I use the name, right, it will just append the same name one. I mean, it will just replace the same name one. So if I have anything dotted here, this one will just replace the dotted here. Okay, so before you export or import, so here we can see the export or import option. Okay, so if I just import from any of the files, say for example, let me just check if I have anything on the. Okay, so here I have one template. Choose. Okay, let me show the building materials because for the building materials, as we saw, there are some associated attributes like finishes, surfaces, and so on. So for the one that we just created, uh, so you can see the one that we just created is at the end. So for this particular building material, there are three associated attributes, which is two are fill types and one is the surface. So you need to make sure when you are exporting, you need to make sure this is also ticked so that you can export this also with the associated attributes. Okay, so here there's one in the temporary which I just imported. So if I want to append this, right, so you can see here this is having the index 1. Okay, so it will just if I choose by index, it will just replace this one index material. So make sure before you append or by index or by name, you need to make sure whether it is behaving as intended. Okay, so one thing that you need to note when you are importing or exporting is to have this option ticked so that the associated elements and associated attributes will also be exported. So if you are exporting surface, right? Say for example, if you want to export a surface, so if the surface is having an image, so that image will not be added to this export option. So for that, you need to send the image separately so that that can be loaded into the project library so that surface will use the image from the library. Okay, so make sure you pass the images along with the attribute that you export here in the XML file format. Okay, so here under all, we have all the attributes here irrespective of the types. Okay, so you can choose to purge if you want. Okay, so that's it about the attribute manager. Let me just click OK here. Now let us see the renovation filter. Okay, so I have a project here and then I have assigned there is a renovation status for the components. Okay, so let us apply one of the renovation filter that we have. So I'm going to choose this A&A works renovation filter that we have on the template. So you can see based on the local standards, we are able to see the renovation statuses in the form of color coding. Okay, so one thing that you note here, even the 2D components getting overwritten here. So in order to avoid that, you can just go inside the renovation filter options and then choose the renovation filter, and then under the additional filter options for, you can uncheck the override for annotating elements. Okay, so if I just check these, you can just click OK. You can see the 2D is not getting overridden by the renovation filter. Okay, so now if I note again, the grids are getting annotated. So in order to avoid that, we can use the graphic overrides. So I can just go ahead and create my own graphic override. So I have a graphic override using which I've created already using that I can exclude, or I can create a new override for the boundary and then for the setback grid components. Okay, so I can just use this. So when I use that, you can see my setback and then the boundary also got changed. So it's not using the renovations filter override. Okay, so now if I want to have this grid, so let me just create a new rule for that. Okay, so I can just give a name grid, or I can just duplicate from any of the previous rules. So in the previous rule, I have boundary and then the setback. I can choose them, and then I can choose grid name. Okay, so here if I go inside the rule and if I edit the rule, so I can just remove this option, because in the previous rule we are defining the criteria based on the element ID. So now I just want all the grids uh, to be overridden to this particular line pen. Okay, so maybe to number 4. Okay, so I want the grids to be number 4. Okay, so I can just click OK. So in Archicad, all these rules are applied from top to bottom. So the bottommost one, which is the last one applied, will be the one that you can see here. Okay, so you can see the grids got changed with green color. That is the one that I just chosen. Okay, so this way you can exclude your grids from applying the renovation filters. But again, for 2D annotations, right, you can simply use the option here. Okay, and then inside the renovation filter, if you see, we have options to override or show or hide them. Okay, so in this ENA works, we are overriding all three elements, like existing elements, elements to be demolished, and new elements. Okay, so for the existing elements, the renovation filter, we are just overriding the existing one and then hiding the other two types. Okay, so for each type we have options, additional filter options here. So if in case you are using to be deleted only, so you can see elements to be demolished, you can hide the zones, you can hide objects, you can show cut fill, solid cut fills, or the options that are available here you can use and then customize your own renovation filters. Okay, so how we are defining the colors, again it is based on the graphic override rules. So once you click that, you will see the top three one, the existing elements, elements to be demolished, and new. So these three, you will not be able to change the criteria, but you can change only the override style. Okay, so here we have defined it based on the local standards. So you can define them according to your standards also if you want. Okay, so you won't be able to change the criteria here as we did for the other graphic overrides. So say for example, if I select the other graphic overrides that we just created, you can see I can change the criteria, but for the one that is used inside the graphic overrides for renovation filters, you won't be able to change anything here. Okay, so before we close, let me just show you how to find out if in your project, if any of the attributes are missing, you can find out from the find and select filter. Okay, so let me just choose any of the attributes and then delete that we have used inside the project. Say for example, if I'm using the fills and then I'm just deleting this brick fill. Okay, so I just deleted and click OK. So now we have used inside our project the brick fill, and see how to find out that. So let's go under the edit. You can choose the find and select here, or you can choose Control F. Okay, so here I'm choosing the element types as all element types, and then here under the add, I can select for attributes. So if I search attributes, you can choose missing attributes, and I can choose true here under the option here. Okay, so now I can select the elements that are having the attribute missing. So it is selecting only this fill. Okay, so this fill, if I go here inside the fills settings, you can see the fill is missing. So this way, if your project is having any attributes missing, you can use the find and select option and then the attribute missing here, and then select the elements that are having the attributes missing. So when you go inside your element settings, you'll be able to find out what are all the attributes that is being missed. So here I've deleted the fill that we created just now, so I'm not able to see it, so it's missing. So I can change it to anything that are available here. Click OK. Okay, so that's it for today. So let me go back to the presentation. Please follow us on the Twitter, sorry, on the Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you can also find our recordings on the YouTube uh, channel. We will post it sooner so that you can find them.